This is FE Peer Review. The date is the 7th of November 2022. YouTube's most boring video. Tracking Trans-Oceanic Southern Hemisphere flights. This video is looking at the flight from Luanda, Angola to Sao Paulo, Brazil. A Southern Hemisphere flight that passes just north of the island of Tristan da Cunha. This came about because of a conversation I had with somebody by the name of Patavius, who left comments on an earlier video and said, there are no flights, Southern Hemisphere flights, etc., flat Earth, gonna go the wrong way, yada yada. And I thought, oh, he also said that the flight from, specifically the flight from Luanda to Sao Paulo, doesn't really exist and never actually happens. So I suggested to him in a response comment that we look at that on flight tracking software, since neither of us are in a position to actually go and book one of the flights. And so I did that. I never heard back from him, of course, but I did that. And we've got 3 different flight tracking software programs on the internet that we're looking at. And we followed the flight from Luanda to Sao Paulo, and then a few days later the return flight from Sao Paulo to Luanda. And that's what we've got in the remainder of this video. There's a bit of narration at the beginning. In the sections where there was no narration and I didn't see the point of letting it run at regular speed, I sped it up. Sometimes 4 to 8 to 16 times I sped it up. I also tried to edit it so that there's dissolves and things so that it's very clear where I've cut stuff and where I've changed the speeds. Otherwise, you would have all been sitting here looking for 2 hours at a screen with little dots that barely move. So I figured there'd be no harm in doing a bit of editing. I am also not equipped to do, a full 9-hour screen capture, and the flight was a little under that. It was like 8.5 hours, and that was just not something I was equipped to do and didn't think would be necessary. If somebody wants to do that in order to catch every minute of the flight, well, they're welcome to, but I'm not going to watch it. So here goes. Hope you enjoy. A couple weeks back, I put out this video here, and I received a comment from somebody by the name of Patavius. We'll scroll down and take a look at that. Patavius wrote, "You don't like the truth, ain't ya?" We exchanged some comments, and Patavius was saying something about Southern Hemisphere flights. Let's see. I wanted to take a direct ticket of 8 hours and 10 minutes flight from Luanda to Sao Paulo, but this flight is a fictitious one and has never existed. He's making a claim that these Southern Hemisphere nonstop flights are not for real. They never actually happen. Well, I don't live in that part of the world, and I'm not going to go down there and buy a ticket and do the flight just to satisfy this guy, because even if I did that, he wouldn't be satisfied probably. But it did occur to me that we could at least watch one of these flights across the Southern Hemisphere on one of the websites that does flight tracking. So I left him a little comment. I just went into flights.google.com. I searched for flights. I found one from Sao Paulo to Luanda, return flight. I gave some dates, October the 19th and October the 23rd. I assume you're not in a position to book a seat on either of those flights. I am not. So since we can't personally verify that way, I propose the following. We can use the website FlightAware. We will each see if these 2 flights appear in real time on FlightAware's flight tracker. We'll also watch the TAAG website to see if there's any sign of a cancellation of both those flights. Remember, if even only one of those flights goes through and reaches its destination and close to the scheduled time, then your claim of there being no such flights is falsified. Well, real life intervened on October 19th, and I was not able to be at my computer to do that. However, today, October 23rd, I am, and I am getting ready to track FlightAware, and I got another website that does flight tracking, and we're going to look at them both. And we're going to watch that flight depart from Luanda, and then we're going to watch it arrive in Buenos Aires. Now, it's going to be the middle of the night for me, and I'm not going to stay up all night on this silly project, but I'm going to catch pieces of it along the way. I'm limited to 10-minute. My software limits me to 10-minute long screenshots, screen videos. So I'm going to be doing video screen takes of 10 minutes, and then I'll probably speed them up in the final version of this, just so that you guys aren't sitting there staring at a dot on the screen for 10 minutes. I mean, I've subjected you all to a lot of stuff, but I don't think that's something you'd put up with. Anyhow, what we've got is, so here's Flight Aware. This is the flight, Angola Airlines Flight 747. And no, that's not an airplane. That's actually the flight number. DTA 747 is the flight number. And it's going to be taking off from Luanda in, how long from now? Half an hour or so. Expected to depart in 20 minutes. Here's the map down here. Shows Luanda on the right and Sao Paulo on the left. And then there's another website called Flight Radar, which shows the flight that was a few days ago from Sao Paulo to Luanda. It is radar tracked, so there's sections of it that are not apparent on the screen because they're not within radar range. I wonder why that is. Why do you suppose the radar can't get out to these areas? Anyhow, there are some islands in the middle here, so the radar on those islands does capture the plane as it flies past. So if I can get myself up at the right time of night, once this plane gets over to this part of the world, I'll try to catch some of that on the screen as well. Okay, that's enough blathering. That's just telling you what we're going to be doing for the next few minutes. And now I'm going to cut this and pause it and come back to it when we get ready to take off. I haven't actually used this flight radar site before, so I don't know if it's actually going to give us live real-time data that we can watch on the screen. I've got the previous flights of the last couple of weeks showing here, and they've got a little button that says play, and what we've got on the screen here was the previous flight, which was earlier in the week, and the data for it. But I just wanted to have it up and ready just in case it does give us the real-time information. We're a couple of minutes away now, expected to depart shortly. Now we're looking at the FlightAware website. So we'll see if this flight departs on time. It may or may not. You know, it seems to be fairly often a few minutes late. So I'll just keep an eye on it, and I'll come back to the screen capture as soon as it gets going. All right, the flight seems to be underway. It's running a little bit late, but it seems to have taken off. It's already flown 56 miles, 6 minutes ago. So let's zoom in here on this map and see if it starts to show us a little bit of detail. Is it giving us something? Looks like that's our flight there, and there's the airport. So it's starting. I'm going to check out some of the other flight tracking websites and see what they show. This is the flight radar site, and I'm not sure whether this actually does it real time or not. Yep, it seems to be showing up. It says live, where I'm circling my mouse. I'm going to click on that and see what it gives us. Okay. All right, the first few minutes of the flight, there we are. So here's the airport up on the upper right corner, and it's taken off in the southwesterly direction and then headed west over the water. And that's where it is now. I'll zoom out a little bit. So it's on its way. Right now it is, let's see, what time is it? It is here in France where I am. It's 10 minutes to 11 in the evening on Sunday, the 23rd of October. The times shown on the screen here are for Uganda, which is an hour earlier. So here it's, what did I say it was? 10:50 p.m. and it showed the flight having 9:45 p.m. taken off. So an hour, well, 5 minutes ago, 6 minutes ago, and running a little late. Okay, I'll come back to this from time to time, and we'll track it. I'm going to let this run, and I'll run it at a higher speed in the final video, and I won't be narrating, so this is just going to run here. Okay, it looks like this screen on the flight radar website does not update automatically, but if I drag this little icon of an airplane towards the right here, it's showing the path of the plane. And at the far end here, now with the airplane on the left side of the screen, it's showing that it's at 17,500 foot altitude, traveling at 439 knots. I'll try refreshing the screen because I haven't done that in a few minutes. Okay, it's still showing the same thing. We're still pretty close to the same. So it's only been a few minutes. I just wanted to see how this website works. I'll refresh it again in a little while. On the FlightAware website, we're starting to see some movement on the map here. Shows the airport at the upper right of the map and the plane taking off here towards the slightly southwest. Time elapsed 13 minutes, 107 miles flown. It's right here. And down here we're getting a profile, or we will be getting a profile. It looks like I see an altitude axis on the left. This website is called Flight Stats, and it's also showing some real-time information. Shows it as having departed. So the scheduled departure time is 9:30 p.m. and the actual is 9:45. On the screen down here we're seeing the progress of the airplane in the southwesterly direction, and it looks like this one is showing the altitude as well. So it's currently at 77,198 feet and climbing. Oh, this is nice. It gives a heading, it gives a speed in knots. This will be a good one to track as well. And it does seem to be updating the map in real time, but I don't see any of the figures updated, so I may have to refresh the screen in order to make that work. Petavius is missing out on a lot of fun, an opportunity to learn how some of this stuff works. He never did respond to any of my comments to him suggesting we do this, but then you know how that goes. Hard data is not something that is conducive to a flat Earth. All right, I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes. All right, we're back looking at Flight Radar 24 again. We've made a little more headway. We've reached cruising altitude. If I drag this little plane icon here, we can see that we reached cruising altitude, about there. Here we see it on its flight path. So 34,000 feet. And then if we take it to the end right now, it's showing the time. It's giving the time on this website is UTC time. And I kind of like that rather than having to jump through a bunch of different time zones. So this flight started, according to this website tracker, it started at 8:38 p.m. UTC, which was 9:38 p.m. in Luanda, and 10:38 p.m. where I am here in France. So I'm just going to continue using this UTC time for the rest of this video. So that's the course of the flight up till now. We can see that it's getting up to speed and getting to cruising altitude. Now the flight radar website is going to go like go black, you might say, go silent at a certain point when it's no longer visible by radar, and then it's going to be just giving us a dashed line showing the scheduled flight path, the filed flight path, until it gets into the region of these islands here where there's again some radar to actually track it for real. Then it's going to go dark again, and then it's going to get picked up on radar at the other end. So that's what we'll be seeing. To go back to FlightAware and see what FlightAware is telling us. Well, it shows the flight path. Let's zoom back out. So the little altitude thing here doesn't seem to be working, or else I'm not using it correctly. It doesn't show us the profile of its altitude there. I'll play with that a little more later on, but that doesn't seem to be working for some reason. 35 minutes has elapsed. It's flown 290 miles. Flight radar, and then we also had this website, which is called Flight Stats, and it's showing the path that's going to be taking, and it's updating. Well, I think I have to hit a refresh in order to get it to update. Scheduled and when it actually left. And this one shows the profile of the altitude. It says that it's currently at 22,000 feet, so I'm thinking that perhaps this one is a few minutes delayed from that flight radar site, which shows it as having reached cruising altitude of 34,000 feet. The data could be that this website doesn't get the data as fast as the others. I'm going to zoom in. Yeah, I suspect that's the case. Anyway, we'll come back to these three and keep an eye on them every few hours. It's late here, and I'm going to hit the SAC and come back to it in a couple of hours. All right, we're a few more minutes into it now. The FlightAware website shows 54 minutes elapsed. I just wanted to point a little something out, a little difference between the three sites. So we got 54 minutes elapsed time shown on FlightAware, and Flight Radar shows something similar. If I drag the icon back here, it left at 8:38 UTC, and it's now 9:33 UTC, so it's been 55 minutes. And as I thought, this third website called Flight Stats seems to be just a little bit slower in getting its data, because it's showing 49 minutes of elapsed time. So it's been varying between about 5 and 10 minutes behind the other two websites. But it does show something similar. It's showing an altitude of 32,000 feet, and Flight Radar is showing an altitude of 34. So they're pretty much tracking consistently between the three websites, except for the fact that one of the websites runs a little bit slower than the other two. All right, we're about 2 hours into the flight here. We're looking at FlightAware, and 2 hours and 4 minutes have elapsed. It's flown 1,037 miles. It's got 3,028 miles to go, 6 hours and 11 minutes remaining. Here's the map. And if we go over to Flight Stats, again, we've got similar data. Here's the map showing the progress of it, and here's the altitude diagram there. And I went into Flight Radar and refreshed it, and it's not bringing anything up. And I think that means that we've entered into that space where there's no radar available. I pointed that out at the beginning. And it should be, once it's back in the vicinity of Tristan da Cunha Island, then there should be radar information again. So maybe at that point it will update properly. So we'll come back and check that in a little bit. Flight radar is back up again. And I found that it's also got a nice ground speed and altitude graph down below here. So I just turned that on as well. And it's just recently gone up from 34,000 to 36,000 feet. I may have tried to refresh it the last time while it was doing that ascent, and maybe that had something to do with the reason why it wouldn't refresh properly. Anyway, it's now just about due north of Tristan da Cunha. Take a look at the other sites. This is flight aware. We are 2 hours and 24 minutes in. We'll come back to it in a couple of hours. Well, the flight's over. We made it from Luanda all the way across. Looks like they still don't have radar in that section, and then into Sao Paulo. There you go. Let's see what it says here. It'll touch down at, I'm looking at that ground speed part there. Lots of time on the ground. There we go. Now it's right there. 5:07 a.m. UTC. And then it spent another few minutes on the ground. Okay. Let's take a look at flight aware. We see that the flight made a slight course correction to deal with some weather. There's our altitude tracker. Got up to about 36,000 feet there at the high point. And let's check this one. We'll compare these all and see that they're roughly the same. You can see here that it also did a course correction. Doesn't look exactly the same as the others. I suspect that this is the website that was somewhat delayed by about 10 minutes from the others. I suspect they're not quite as rigorous with their data points. Anyway, I'm going to take screenshots of all this and we'll take a better look at it. It's Wednesday evening here in France, and we are going to be tracking the return flight from Sao Paulo back to Luanda. The flight leaves in a few minutes. It'll be departing the gate in about 6 minutes from now. We see that on the FlightAware website here, but it won't be another 10 minutes or so after that it actually leaves the ground. We'll be tracking it on FlightAware. We'll also be tracking it on Flight Stats, which has this nice little map and details. And then finally, we'll also be looking at Flight Radar 24. It will be this flight right here where I'm running the mouse. So I will return when we are getting ready to leave the ground. We'll take a look at it, and then I will head to bed, check in on it in the middle of the night and check on the progress, and then catch the arrival in the morning. Be back with you in a few minutes. While we're waiting to get off the ground, I thought I'd say a thing or two about the jet stream in the southern hemisphere. This little map here shows the east coast of South America and the west coast of Africa, and it shows the jet stream. Unfortunately, this graphic doesn't give us a speed, but red indicates faster. So there's a faster section in the middle there, and there's also fast stuff down here. But what we're interested in is this bit here, because this is what we'll be flying through. And you may recall that when we did the flight from Luanda towards Sao Paulo, the plane actually made a move sort of like this and then back down again. And I'm not a pilot, so I'm just guessing here that what they were doing was making an effort to fly straight into it rather than have it come at the airplane from the side. Sort of like the way boats go straight into the line of the waves rather than be hit by the waves on the side. Probably makes for a smoother flight. Anyhow, we'll see on the return flight whether they go up a little bit and then catch that jet stream to carry them and take advantage of that extra speed for that stretch. So if any of you happen to know a resource that shows the speeds, a real-time image that shows the speeds of the jet stream, that would be great. I'd like to know about that. I haven't been able to find one. Okay, it is 1836 in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and our flight appears to have left the gate. This image shows the plane showing up now on our flight tracking for the first time, flight radar 24. You can see it here on its way to the runway. The other two websites haven't picked it up yet. So we're looking at the flight from Sao Paulo, Brazil to Luanda, Angola, and it should be getting off the ground in the next few minutes. 6:15 p.m. was the scheduled departure time from Sao Paulo. That's Sao Paulo time. It's supposed to arrive at 6:30 a.m. Angola time. And I believe, I'm doing from memory here, I believe there's a 4-hour difference and it's an approximately 8-hour flight. So that adds up to about 12 hours. This thing doesn't seem to refresh automatically, and I have to hit the F5 button from time to time to get it to refresh. It seems that Flight Radar 24 is the most up-to-date as far as being on top of things with real-time tracking. The other two websites are running a few minutes behind. Gradually making our way out to the runway, getting ready to take off. Looks like we're getting ready. I don't know if there's some trick to make this thing actually track real time. I have to hit F5 and keep refreshing the screen. But anyway, we're on our way here. We're getting up to speed. 175 knots. Should be taking off. Okay, I'll let this thing go a few miles. And then I'm going to be hitting the sack for a few hours. Alright, it looks like FlightAware is showing it now too. Whoa, it's on its way. Woo! 268 knots. It's getting up to speed here. This is Sao Paulo. Let's see if we can see it on here. There we are. Now we see it. It's this one here. I'm going to let this run for a few minutes. So that's that. It has landed. It looks like this flight aware is slightly behind the others. Flight radar has it on the ground and at the gate, as does flight stats. Welcome to Luanda. I'll take screenshots of these end screens and then we can see how long it took.